Welcome to the Precast Podcast, episode 49. Today we're talking about 3D printing, specifically focused on the construction and concrete industry. So we have Peter Cooperman with us today. Peter, thank you very much for joining us. Great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Peter, as we get going, if I could ask you to give us an intro of who you are and an intro of Black Buffalo.
Sure. So my name is Peter Cooperman. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Black Buffalo 3D. I was also the fourth employee here in the US. So I started a few years ago. Black Buffalo 3D originated in South Korea. The grandson of the Hyundai Corporation actually bought a company which, believe it or not, was named Corona at the time, pre-pandemic. They have since rebranded. We used to report into them. Actually, we've acquired the company since over the last couple of years. So now we kind of flip the roles. And Black Buffalo 3D was started as the global accelerator. So a lot of this technology existed in South Korea, but it was a smaller scale. Basically a 3D construction printer that could print like a 10 by 10 room. Now we're up to a modular design that could easily print 40 by 40 that's on rails, that basically has an infinite footprint, focused a lot on on-site 3D printing of structures, but also there will be future applications, and some people use it near site as well, to just do different components to different buildings. So we'll get into that a little later. We're also proud, and we'll cover this, to be the only ICC-ES certified company in the world to provide a complete solution so that what you print with our printer and our material can actually be the structure.
What is your current focus in terms of geography? Is it North America, or are you focused all around the world?
We're focused all around the world. We do have a pretty careful approach to expansion, that we want to make sure that we get the material right in any region before we enter it, because we feel like not just the machine and the process, but everything and how it works together is the most important part of getting successful projects, and also making sure that people can use the technology. So we want to make it as easy as possible, so that they have a complete package. There's standard procedures and suggestions on how to print walls and different structures, and we know that they're getting a consistent, reliable product. So right now we're all throughout North America. We're expanding into the Middle East. We have a distributor partner there, a lot of interest and talks in Central America. So within the next 3 to 6 months, there will be a lot more public about our expansion. And of course, in Asia, we already have operations there with our subsidiary in South Korea.
Can I ask the question, where is your equipment or the printers manufactured?
Manufactured right now in South Korea. We do have a facility in East Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania for assembly, setup, and training. I'll be heading there tomorrow, so I'll be there for a couple days. We go out there, we do a lot of live demonstrations, presentations, R&D. We have R&D in Pennsylvania. We have R&D in South Korea as well. And then we also partner with MAPE on the material side, so we have access to their R&D facilities.
Got it. Okay, great. So as we get going here, could you bring us through, kind of high level, like what is 3D printing and how is it utilized in the construction space?
3D printing technically is additive manufacturing. So it's really building upon something layer by layer. And if you haven't seen a 3D printer of any kind, I recommend just going to your local library at this point. Similar to 3D construction printing, it used to be something that was rare and maybe only a few facilities had it. Now a lot of different they're part of STEAM and STEM programs. My kids learn about 3D construction printing, 3D printing from their schools, 3D construction printing from me.
Yeah.
But it's really adding layer on layer, and how it came to be in construction is actually very much how it works on a desktop printer. You're relying on the same type of software and drivers for a high level explanation, like you would send a print job from your computer to a regular printer. There's specific file types and instructions that go to a 3D printer, and it tells the printer how to print out the structure, whether it's a desktop printer or a 3D construction printer. it's relying on the same type of code. So, what we recommend with our customers is look for someone that has either CNC control experience or has experience, even if it's with a desktop 3D printer, because it's very similar in the operations.
As you were providing the introduction, Peter, you talked about how right now up to approximately a 40-foot by 40-foot footprint, with a printer on rails is your largest offering right now. How are you guys providing the actual software or the hardware, or the controls that control that large printer that's on site? Is that also in-house, or is that something that you partner with?
We source a FANUC controller that's customized for our printer. What we do now is, our business model is to sell the printers, the materials available through MAPE distribution in North America, and we have other partners that we'll announce throughout the rest of the world. But we basically train people on how to use the technology. If they don't have someone in-house that can convert from, let's say, a CAD file to a G code and put it into a slicer, we'll take a traditional design once or twice for free, train them on how to use those programs, but also make suggestions on, design. If it's a 3D printer, a lot of the homes now and projects are pilot type projects. They might have to fit into a neighborhood, so people are still printing rectangles and squares. We try to encourage at least one wave or curve or something on one of the walls. But we really do a lot of hand holding at this point, because right now the industry is in its infancy. So a big part of what we want to do is, podcasts and talks with colleges, training schools, technical schools, unions, get people trained and up to speed on how to use this technology, how to finish a 3D printed building, because we're focused primarily on the walls right now. So there's different finishing techniques. There's questions always around floor, roof, MEP, anything that comes with putting a building together. We're not necessarily eliminating any jobs. We're just trying to change the skill set a little bit and increase the knowledge.
The reason I asked the question about controls, so I used to work with a company that provided equipment utilized to manufacture precast concrete.
Yep.
So the aggregate, cement, admixture, etc., everything goes into the mixer, and it was this beautiful manufacturing plant set up, and then you have a control room with a computer in it. Everything's PC, PLC controlled, and sometimes you would have someone who's the plant operator that's never run a computer before. It's just that was always an interesting training process to
yeah. And I think right now with what we recommend with our clients is, probably around 5 people on the job site. 2 of them are skilled. One we recommend has just experience with concrete or mixing cement or anything on site, because we have sensors on the machine. We have some intelligence there. I mean, me even being here for around 3 years, I could eyeball if the mix is coming out, too dry or too wet. I'm not as accurate as the sensors or someone that's been doing it for 20 years, but that would be one skilled position. And it's nice because if someone is even looking at retirement, and it's also tough to attract people into the field right now, no one wants to work too hard. But you can extend the career of someone that can almost sit in a lounge chair and kind of watch the material instead of doing the heavy lifting, and know exactly what's going on, how it's coming out. And then the other skilled operator is someone with either the CNC controls or 3D printing experience. And all the rest are just helping, there's reinforcement that's placed like every 8 inches horizontally with our approved wall. So someone's got to place that. Someone's watching the nozzle. There is a mixing station. Our proprietary ink, sold as Planetop 3D through MAPE in the US, is available to everyone, not just our clients. Is a ready mixed, not ready mix, but a ready mixed formula that you just add water on site. So there's, I don't know where it is in this picture, but there's a silo, pan mixer, and a pump that basically feed everything to the nozzle. So, someone's got to be there as well. So there is still some hands-on. It's not just press a button, get a building. Maybe one day we'll be there, but you do want some people with experience. And if they don't have it, then we do provide the training. It is a lot easier though if you find even a college intern. We had one from Columbia University. I remember, the application said she 3D printed a boat, car, something. And
Yeah.
I was really excited to talk to her. And I hope she listens to this and isn't disappointed. But she told me what it was, and it was like the size of a Matchbox car. And I
Okay.
totally misread everything.
Yeah.
But, sure enough, within 3 weeks, she was running our printer. So,
Okay.
it definitely helps to have that level of experience. I think where we want to go and where the industry wants to go is to the point where you're just using an iPad or something and it's very easy. So we are actually developing that right now. We have a partner on the slicer software, and a big part of, probably what you experienced at the precast plant was also not just computer interface and machine, but like human machine interface and knowing how everything interacts.
Yeah.
So we want to work towards automating a lot of that, but in the meantime, make sure that we make it as easy as possible so that someone can come in out of the construction field or out of the computer field and actually be able to operate one of these machines within a few weeks.
If we could talk about mixed design, we're working with Shea Concrete Products. The majority of our concrete that's mixed is self-consolidating concrete, which is very different from a conventional concrete mix that utilizes a slump test. Could you bring us, what type of materials go into the mixed design that are utilized in your printers? And, maybe, I guess it sounds like it's an on-site mixing process, and then everything is fed directly to that nozzle.
Yep. So our mix is proprietary, so I can't get into too many details. But I'll say that it is a high strength mortar. So it does have sand as the aggregate. It has several plasticizers, additives in it. And then we also reduce the cement content by reusing some, incorporating fly ash and other materials, because we are working towards a greener solution. I'll say I'm not the technical guy either, so I can save myself there, but it's delivered in 3,000-pound super sacks. Everything is already mixed together. There's fibers in it. And it was developed over the course of a couple years. We started with what we thought was a very good formula developed from our team in South Korea. MAPE gave us access to their very excellent R&D team. And we went through over 60 formula changes. And part of the reason was that our goal, and I was relatively quiet even as head of marketing for the first couple of years at this job, because all we were doing was batching different mixes, printing 7 or 8 layers, running tests, short-term, long-term tests. And the ones that we liked, we would get made into super sacks and print larger walls. So it's really cool to see stuff 3D printed in person. Me sharing out videos of hundreds and hundreds of walls that we printed as tests, not as exciting. But it took a ton. We worked with ICC. The standard that we tested to is called the AC509. It's for structural printed concrete walls. And originally it was only written for 8 or 8.5 foot height. So we actually worked for a year to rewrite it and get it approved through ICC and all their members and, I guess advisors that chime in on any changes to code or criteria rather. So we made it up to multi-story, and at the same time, that made our testing a little bit harder for us. It's very important to us that we wanted to make sure that this wasn't just technology that was sidelined to a single story building. We think that people can go higher, people could build bigger, and we wanted to make sure that our material supported that along with our printers.
Okay, fantastic. You mentioned as we were starting the podcast, one specific certification that your company has. I've worked at different parts of my career, working with AASHTO or ASCE, folks of that nature. How has the process been, working with specification entities, certification entities, and, getting to where you are now?
I think ICC-ES has been really great to work with. They're, of course, pointing to a lot of ASTM codes and different requirements there. Through the work that we've done over the past couple of years, I was actually called up by ASTM. I'm a member of the, I'm going to totally butcher what it is, but basically the future of digital construction. steering committee. So we're not just talking about 3D construction in those conversations. It's, BIM modeling and digital twins, and we're trying to figure out how we can get this technology adopted. So, we obviously found the ICC's criteria, the AC509, because it was the only one that existed in the world. But a lot of it relied on existing ACI standards and different codes that we were trying to meet. So I think that the world will kind of adapt rather different existing codes. And then when people can see what the technology can do, there will be other standards that come out of it. And we want to make sure that all of our customers and clients, and I guess everyone in the world knows, just because we tested and met that standard, it doesn't mean we're done. Our goal is to have several different wall designs that are approved and coded, or at least meet criteria throughout the world. ICC is recognized in over 50 countries, so we started there. We know our customers get access to an ESR report that gives lab verified specifications for printed wall, material, the machine, end to end, basically from mix to printed wall structure. But it's a starting point. When you're printing any kind of structure in a local municipality, there's going to be different standards, different codes, different levels of understanding. We're happy to provide our customers with something that's, verified and basically proves that our technology is the equivalent of a CMU block, which was our goal in the first place. But we do want to give them options. We had a customer in Newport News, Virginia, that just printed 2 homes down there. We'll do an unveiling on that probably in the next month or so, with Habitat for Humanity. And, our AC509 wall is a filled wall because that was the criteria, what the criteria called for. They were able to use our ESR report and the test results of our printed wall to be approved for an unfilled wall. So they could actually put perlite. I don't know if they ended up using perlite because the cost went up. I don't remember if it was perlite or foam. But they can actually put the insulation inside the wall without having to print a bead or put a framed wall inside. So that's really big for anyone in the industry to be able to have that lab accredited ICC approved report and just use it as negotiation. And I think that happens on any build project. We're also talking to government agencies. We were at the Housing Innovation Summit at the National Mall last year. We were invited back. And I don't know if I've said it publicly, but I got my awesome photos of the printer on the National Mall. I got the Capitol building. I got the Washington Monument in the background. I got a bunch of selfies. We were not allowed to print there because the Parks Department warned us that if we spilled any water, blew any dust or anything, there might be massive fines and jail time. So we ran in demo mode. We had some pre-printed walls. So this year, my demand list for going back, because we were invited, is, find us something nearby. If we can't print there, let us print something permanent, whether it's a bench, a gazebo, or something. So we're not just printing for the sake of doing a demo. So that's in June. I think we might pass on it because I don't know if we'll be able to work out the logistics on that in time. But we are talking to HUD. We're talking to all different government agencies, and the ICC approval was a starting point to just prove out that we can control the process a little bit by having the material, the machine, and everything tested, so that we can start getting these organizations to actually endorse 3D construction printing as a new tech for building.
So shifting into talking about the markets that you're currently serving, markets that you're currently looking to get into. Obviously, housing is, I'm going to assume that's the largest one at this time.
Yeah, I think housing is a hot topic. I mean, in North America, we expected we'd be doing commercial buildings and data centers and stuff that was typical on block initially. But with everything that happened in the world over the last 3 years and the massive push for, people maybe moving out of metro areas into more rural areas, the need for housing and infrastructure set up, housing was just a great talking point throughout the world. So we're definitely focused on housing. We're also going to do a couple projects with commercial buildings in the next 6 months. And of course, I wouldn't be on this podcast if there wasn't some interest in precast.
Yep.
And right now, with where the industry's at, you could 3D print the form for precast, but there's a lot of R&D and things that have to happen to be a viable alternative to some of the precast structural components that exist today. And we're hoping we get there by partnering with companies like Shea and others to really test it out and prove it out, because we want to make sure that whatever we do with this technology actually makes sense. We don't want it to just be a gimmick or a PR push. We want to make sure that people adopt it and it actually helps out the world in some way.
Right now, there have been initiatives where 3D printing has been utilized in the architectural space, though, right? Is that correct? Thus far, in the precast concrete industry.
Yeah, there've been a couple walk bridges. There have been different non-structural designs.
Mm-hmm.
I think in China they might have done a couple of structural prints, but we're not sure exactly how much was 3D printed, how much was precast. Was it just poured into a foundation, a form? So, there hasn't been a ton in the precast world. I think, we want to get the houses, the building. It's almost like baby steps, but we are doing a ton of R&D on our side. I can't state everything. Any 3D printed building, there's only a couple in the world that actually use the printer or utilize the printer to do a roof or a floor or the foundation at this point. And our initial analysis was, you might not save time. There might not be gained efficiency in using the printer for those components. So we're trying to figure out, and it's a test that I'll probably, by the time your podcast airs, we'll have some clips of it, but we 3D printed sample like a roof design. So we could do a poured roof on top, and we're testing it right now. And one of our projects that we're going to do this year will utilize that approach. And we can use the printer because we do have a pump as part of the printer. We could use the nozzle or the hose, and we could feed the concrete through. It's not necessarily 3D printed because it's not layer by layer, but we can print the form of the roof and then utilize the technology that's already, or the equipment that's already on site to pump up the concrete for the actual roof.
Let's say, let's say in Boston, Massachusetts, there was a project that was bid, and it was a 20 by 20 building that was utilized to store equipment, and it was awarded to a contractor who submitted with a 3D printing idea to get this done. If they called you and said, "Hey, Peter, here's what I have. Here's how I won this project. I want to work with you. I need your help." Could you bring us through how that process would work?
Yep. So we'd evaluate it. Sounds crazy, but we're picky about who we're selling our printers and tech to. We want to make sure that anyone that gets a printer will actually utilize it, and not just for a one-off project, but make sure that the money and dollars make sense. But the approach would basically call us, speak with our sales team. They'll help evaluate the project. We'll even take a look at the design, put it through our slicers so they'll know exactly how much material they need. So there's almost zero waste on the process, and they'll know the cost and the print time. So we want to make sure that we're doing things more efficiently. We want to make sure that they're getting a stronger building and end result than traditional methods, and also just find out more about their business and what their goals are with doing 3D. I think if they already bid it and they won for 3D, they're probably already pretty far along in our talks with us. But that 120 by 20 building won't pay for the printer. So we want to make sure that, and we will partner with a couple of companies on rentals, but we're scaling it back a little bit. We launched a rental program, and we found a lot of companies that were startups could get funding for one or two projects or print some flower pots. And they sent the printer back because they were startups that never built anything.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that we partner with people that have experience with traditional construction and building. They know what goes into finishing a project. Because as I mentioned earlier, we're focused primarily on the walls right now, maybe some architectural features. It's really easy. It's a loaded question to ask. Is it more affordable? Is it cheaper right now? Even on a one-off house build, a lot of people say it's never, economically viable to get a printer, set it up on site, print one house. To me, it depends. Like if you're doing a dream house in a year or two, a bay window will add $40,000 maybe, depending on the design. It's a 5-minute change in a 3D printer. So people have to understand that this is not just a alternative method to traditional building. there's a lot more you can do, but you have to look at each design to kind of factor in where the savings or where the cost will be. And, in the US, it's still tough to convince people not to live in a stick-built house, which is kind of crazy with everything going on in the world. We've seen a lot of natural disasters. So outside the US, we have a little less of a hurdle. I think the US is starting to catch on as the designs of these homes get better. As people realize that on the inside, if you want, sheetrock, you could finish it however you want and make it look as aesthetically pleasing as you want. But there's definitely different markets for 3D. The commercial building, like you said, there's an attainable housing push. And then there's also people that just want to be able to say they 3D printed their house and they're willing to pay a little more. We get all the inquiries through our website, and we just, we work with our customers and decide if they're willing to take on the job, or they get added to the list. So when the technology is more mainstream, we reach out to them.
Got it. And so it sounds like, kind of to your point, if somebody was going to, be serious about a 3D printed project, they can call and talk to your sales tech support group.
Yeah. And we have in-house architects and engineers as well.
I guess what major challenges do you see right now as you continue to gain traction, in the housing construction market, or, focusing on walls? What do you see as challenges or opportunities that you continue to work through right now?
Yeah, I think challenges are just the understanding of where the technology's at right now and education. And, the early on, there were a couple of stories about 3D printed buildings and, not necessarily with our company or sometimes with our company. Stuff would get picked up and people would publish, house printed in 10 hours for $4,000. And that media pickup really hurt the industry in a way because it was just taken out of context or it wasn't an accurate statement. I think the biggest challenge we have is just getting people to understand that right now the technology is new. There's efficiencies and you could be, saving money and time on the overall project, but there's a lot that goes into answering that question. So many people read articles like that and they write in through our website and they want us to show up with a printer and print a garage because they think it'll be cheaper. If a house was $4,000, the garage will be even less. Yeah. So the biggest hurdle we have is just, right sizing the expectations for the cost of the technology, and really getting people trained and up to speed, because now we're starting to see these projects at scale, where people are incorporating using a 3D printer into home designs or building designs, and the money does make sense. But they need to find people that are trained and can operate the equipment. So we're talking to partners right now, and it's partners on many levels, education, technical schools, really any university or high school that writes in through the website, even if it's a nighttime or a weekend. I try to make time, our team tries to make time to actually talk to the class. What's really cool about 3D printing technology is that it's actually bringing the younger generation back into construction. So we want to make sure that there's a workforce there as we scale production of the printers. And because we have manufacturing in South Korea, which has expertise in manufacturing heavy equipment, we could scale this really quickly. Right now, we're just looking for partners that are willing to incorporate even 10% of a big project that they might do mostly traditional into 3D. And they'll see that for the first time ever, when they're doing a big development, when people show up, it's not protesting or arguing or complaining about noise. They're coming with, beers and hot dogs and hamburgers and hanging out to watch buildings be printed. So I think 3D is really great for showing innovation and really just changing the approach to building that hasn't changed in like 20 years, with the exception of some ICF stuff and maybe some offsite that happens. But we're really excited about incorporating robotics and some more programming into construction and kind of seeing where the industry takes it.
It's funny. I guess the one thing you indicated was the noise associated. If you had two homes in a neighborhood with a lot between, and the owner of that lot said, you know what, I'm going to 3D print my house. Once you have the initial setup done, of the printer, obviously.
Mhm.
What do you get in terms of noise or decibels, things like that?
The printer itself is really quiet. It's just if there isn't power hooked up, the generator is going to be the loudest thing.
Okay, okay, understood.
So, I mean, I was actually blown away. Just using different materials, even around my house and projects, and like patching concrete stairs that were cracked and everything.
Hmm.
The smell was pretty bad. I was using a mixer that was fairly loud.
Yeah.
Our material is almost like wet dough, how it smells.
Yep.
There's no scent or anything. The mixer itself is a concrete pump and everything, but you could basically run, depending on the setup, you might be able to run 24/7. And a 1,600 square foot house with all the inner and outer walls is typically under 30 hours of print time.
Hmm.
And it sets up right away. When we went to World of Concrete, our partner Mape asked us to print some little samples and just send them over. We printed them, and the next day we FedEx freighted them, like no special container handling care or anything, to
Hmm.
Las Vegas. And they showed up without a crack, without a mark or anything.
Hmm.
So everything sets up really quickly. It's really nice. Codes do have to catch up because they want things to settle for a certain amount of time before you work on it or put a roof on.
Yeah.
But our material within like 7 days cures to 6,000 or 4,000 psi. It's rated for over 6,000, but it constantly tests over 10,000 psi after 28 days.
Is the material? Are you utilizing standard compression tests? For your.
Our technical guys can
Okay.
answer some of
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
We did all kinds of wall tests. There's some stuff on our social media too. It shows in the Intertech lab them trying to crush different angles of even 10-foot printed walls. My favorite part of the Intertech test was they charged us, I think it was an extra $30,000 because their machine couldn't break our wall and they needed a stronger machine. So I tried to get them to quote that in the approval.
Hmm.
They wouldn't, but we got a much bigger bill. And I remember the internal discussions where these guys are ripping us off. We got to pay an extra 30 grand for the test. Let's switch to the other lab. And I'm like, you can't switch to another lab in the middle of a test.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we ponied up and they got a cooler machine out of it, but we were pretty proud of that result.
So it sounds like folks might be able to find you in DC in June.
Yep.
If that's not the case, do you have any upcoming conferences that you will be at displaying?
Yeah,
and talking about?
I don't know how many real estate people listen to this podcast, but the National Association of Realtors asked me to go speak to their technology committee that lobbies with like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac about different technology and build. Also going to be at the Dry Mix Info conference. Dry Mix Info, we're going to do a couple presentations, and day 2, I think that's based in Richmond, Virginia. They're actually going to take a tour bus down to the homes in Newport News.
Oh.
And we're going to do a tour of the 3D printed houses. We're constantly doing different events and shows. We are going to start doing some public webinars and things when we slow down a little bit. But I'll be traveling Central America. We'll be down in Florida. We have a customer in Texas that's going to do 8 to 12 homes that you'll hear about soon. So we'll be all over the place, Middle East. Just I'd say any of your listeners that want to stay up to date, either sign up on our website, or if you want something less obtrusive, follow us on LinkedIn. I share everything there. We're on Twitter and Facebook also, but LinkedIn I like as a professional platform. So we share a little bit more there.
All right. Well, if I mean you're not far from us, but if you're ever in the Boston area, it would be great to have you visit. We have 3 plants in Mass, 1 plant in New Hampshire. Our headquarters is Amesbury, Mass. But it'd be great to have you come and take a look at what we do and see if there might be an opportunity, with how we're currently manufacturing. But yeah, to your point, I do enjoy keeping up with your LinkedIn posts, and I think that might have initially been how we got connected. It's been some time now since we've been talking, but you have a lot of exciting updates, and you guys are definitely going on a pretty high sloped upward projection as the business seems to take off. So, all right, Peter. Well, I appreciate your time.
Thanks. And I will say that with you or any of your listeners, if you're ever in the East Stroudsburg area, we're constantly printing and doing R&D stuff.
Yeah.
We pretty much have a open house policy. So you could pull right up. We have a prototype 4-story printer out back that you'll see even if we're closed. And we have one of our modular printers inside that we do a lot of the testing so we could do everything year round. So feel free to reach out on our website, bb3d.io.
Yep.
And you can email questions at blackbuffalo.io and we answer. So anyone that wants to come by, and you, of course, you're welcome anytime. Come check out some 3D printing and see it live.
That'd be great. Okay, fantastic. All right. Well, Peter, much appreciate your time. We will make sure that your contact information is provided. We release this on our website. We have a specific webpage for the Precast Podcast. And we'll make sure that at a minimum, we tag your company pages on all social media platforms you have. And we might even tag you just to give you some more access to that. So very good. Well, we appreciate your time. We appreciate our listeners and the support of the podcast. And this podcast episode will be up shortly. We'll talk to everybody soon.
Thanks, everyone.